Hello, good evening, and welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and those who identify otherwise, for the second round of the 12th season of the SSRI Tuesday Evening Sprint Championship here on ACC. And surely this one will be a cracking race as we go back to the wonderful sunny Belgium with the racetrack of Zolder. I'm Oliver Anderson, Mr. One of Oliver, and behind the cameras, as always, our Grandpa Chris Hill. This one, damn, Zolder, long time no see. A good old friend of mine race-wise, but hey ho, this will be a wonderful time. Last time out we had Dimitri Knoit taking the surprise win in the Bentley at a very, very moist Silverstone race. A little bit of strategy kerfuffling from both Regan Mitchell and Jordy Peters got them further down the runnings. But that just opened the championship way open. I even think that was Dimitri's maiden win here on the channel. So what a wonderful race that must have been for the Bentley driver. Some might even say perfect conditions for Bentley as well, being a sort of a boatly car to drive. Nevertheless, enough with the silly puns. Zolder this evening. Fun track, many fun corners, including Bud, that we'll get more into later on the stream. I think we have a track guide link somewhere in the archives. We'll just have to go through the folders. Oh, and we already found it. Lovely. It's a track mostly known for having few corner numbers, as we'll get into as we go around the track. Down the start, finish straight into turn one. Very tricky track, or tricky corner, as it sort of sharpens up a little bit as you turn. You have that kink before turning in that makes it very difficult to get right. Good overtaking opportunity as well, including turn 2 that we'll be heading up to now. Sort of the same profile, the little kink before we're turning in, and then fully on the throttle. The GT3 cars can't do it around this corner, but just touching the grass here in turn 3, and you will run wide into the windmills in that small channel just going behind us. That was, by the way, channel Boch, the corner. Turn 4, just a slight lift and full throttle down the sort of back straight, I think we should call it on this track. Before heading into turn 5, very difficult chicane. It's a little bit like Imola, where you either take the inside at the first turn or the inside of the second turn. You can't cut both of them, then the car will be wildly difficult to control. Full throttle up through the corner of Bud. A lot of elevation. Some drivers, they will lift off early to get the car placed correctly into turn 7. This very big complex just known as turn 7. You can cut these chicanes so much, but be very careful not to cut them that little bit too much, because that will give you the track warnings. Difficult corner to control the car. One of the few places where you'll have a GT3 car getting loose underneath you when you go through, due to the slight elevation and the camber of the corners. The run from 7 down to 8, including the small kick, also good overtaking opportunity. One of the bigger braking zones on the track, heading into 8, where we have the only kink on the track that have an actual corner number. This one, turn 9, before the long run into turn 7, which is technically 2 corners, but again, the Belgians were very kind with the numbers. Difficult place to hit the pit lane correctly, because the pit lane continues in a straight line here. So if you're on the racing line and someone wants to pit behind you, if they are not aware of their surroundings, they will just plow into the back of you, and we have seen crashes there before. hopefully that will not be the case this evening as we go racing around this lovely track. Speaking of lovely tracks, tomorrow there'll be a little bit of a community event, the big grid launch event at Paul Ricard on LMU with the LMP2 and LMP3 cars. Be sure to get signed up for that if you are slightly interested in racing, especially with that kind of prototype machinery. Besides that, the LMGT3, the first SSRI LMGT3 championship, have begun last week with round 1. Next week will be round 2 of that championship that we hope that we might get a little bit of a stream lined up for. We actually have a calendar here in the background. Really fine details we have. But we hope that we will get a stream lined up for that one. We have had a little bit of some technical difficulties getting that to work in a way that we want to present it to you guys out there. But round 1 have finished at Monza, and what a cracking race that turned out to be. Round 2 will be at the wonderful Spa, another track that the drivers will know if they came from ACC, before we go into a free race stretch without any ACC knowledge. Sebring being the first one, so tricky with the concrete. Fuji being the second one, where we often see torrential rain, and then the season finale at Bahrain. Surely there'll be something if you're interested in GT3 racing. Then the LMU GT3 cars are great fun to drive, a little bit more strategical, strategic, whatever I'm trying to say. More difficult cars to drive, at least. The ABS works a little bit more that you would expect it to in a real car. You can actually feel it when you're on the ABS. The tire wear quite different, and of course the contact in the pit lane are quite funny to see when people don't realize that they're contact, just plow on into a parked car. But that is what it is in that game. Great fun. Speaking of calendars, we're currently on the second race of the 12th season of the GT3 Tuesday Night Sprint Series. We'll be racing at Zolder this evening before the Spa race in 2 weeks' time, on the 23rd of December, where we stay in Belgium, of course, for the lovely Spa Francorchamps, a track that most drivers will know like their back of their hands. One of the best tracks in the world to go racing at. Can be a little bit tedious for practicing, as I think everyone on the grid have done at least 1,000 laps around there, but it is what it is, and surely that will be great to see where the drivers, they will really come into their S's. Not many driver mistakes expected when we go racing at Spa. Before we go to the other side of the new year, with round 4 being at Kyalami, one of my favorite tracks to drive at on ACC. Super fun racetrack. A lot of elevations, great corners, a lot of battle opportunities as well around Kyalami before the season finale at the always difficult Mount Panorama, where we'll definitely see a split between the top guys and the maybe midfield guys, as they will probably go for high downforce configurations where the very best, they will have basically zero wing, as that's a track where you have to balance the speed on the straights versus the grip when you go up and down the mountain section. Surely that will be one to watch. But that is all in the future. Tonight it is Spa. As mentioned before, Dimitri won the overall race 2 weeks ago at Silverstone, and therefore leading the Pro Championship. In the semi-pros, it's a DMF 123, with Scuoto winning the race in his Ferrari at Silverstone, just ahead of his teammates Cararia and Kyalami. Yes, difficult names to pronounce, those Italians. Couldn't you all just have been called Peterson or something like that? Much easier. Maybe we should just start calling them that just for the sake of it, but they'll definitely have something to sort out between them to see who is the fastest one of that team. The rest of pro class ended up being Regan Mitchell in second, and Amato that got promoted from... or was it Macho that got promoted? Honestly, I can't remember at this point, but one of them did get promoted from the semi-pros and up to the pro class due to extraordinary good results, and there might have been some sandbagging in the preseason test. Could have been, at least. Nevertheless, we have live pictures from the mighty Belgium racetrack with Martin Coy back on track. Former semi-pro champion He went on a basically he got maximum points that season, basically undefeated. I think he did drop points in one of the races, but due to the scrap round, he ended up on maximum points. Good to see him out there in the Audi. He will be the first driver to start a flying lap, it looks like. Martin Koy in his Audi R8 GT3 Evo 2, I believe that would be. As he comes around the final corner of turn 10 to get it all started. Quick reminder to the people out there on YouTube, you can ask questions all you want in the YouTube chat. We'll try and answer them the best we can. Throughout this race, the timing board we'll get into a little bit later. Same for the track map. Basically, on the track map, the red dot will be the cars we're following. Blue dots are usually cars on invalid laps. Grey dots are cars on valid laps, and the white dots with the yellow circle around are slow-moving cars, and yeah, yellow dots are yellow flags. But it is a little bit iffy here at the start of the qualifying sessions usually. But nevertheless, Martin Koy gets through the first. You kind of think that Audi could be a little bit tricky around here. It is known to be a little bit loosey-goosey in the rear end, and not that fond of taking curves aggressively. You can see those cones on the insides of that chicane. That's basically the track limits. You can go all the way up to the cones, but the second that you touch them, then you are off the track. So you can, yeah, well, you could actually be a full car off the racing circuit and still being fine around there. Looks surprisingly stable for Martin Koy, as you have to run down the back straight, just turn 10 to go, which is both of these corners. Very generous numbering from the Belgians. Or maybe a little bit cheap with that many combinations. Let's see what Martin Koy does. 129.3 and immediately beaten by Van Liebenstein behind. One of the drivers again with that outside chance of race wins. Van Liebenstein. Van Melle is also getting up there quickly in the race, putting his BMW into P2. Ottleman on the board also. We would expect that Van Liebenstein, Ottleman both being the drivers that if they have their good days, then they'll be up challenging the very top guys, but on average days they'll be closer to the 5th to 10th position, so interesting to see how they will do on this very technical track. Jordy Peterson, the Porsche, known for being a nimble car, reasonable on acceleration. The newer Porsche also good enough on speed, so that could be a good car around here. As Peterson not with a time yet, as is on his first flyer. Let's see what he does. How much does he dare cutting the corner? One of the cones already gone. That looked clean enough to me. He will encounter a little bit of traffic. It looks like no Ottleman seems to be flying, trying to stay ahead. One of the 488 Ferraris up ahead as well. The older generation cars. Good to see so many different cars on track. Would have loved the Lexus though. Nothing beats that machine. Oh, there is a Lexus, I'm being told. Lovely, but Ottleman there moving out of the way the best he can to try and avoid Jordy Peters. So that might have played a little bit of a mind trick on Peters as he came through turn 10, but across the line in a provisional pole lap. Strong time from Peters. It's Van der Linden in the Lexus in P3. Beautiful car, love that machine. My favorite all-time car on ACC. Personally, so fun to drive. The engine sound, just lovely. A little bit loose in the rear end. Back in the days, it used to be super OP in the wet, but they bumped that out just as I started to drive the car. Unfortunately, that, or maybe I just didn't have skills in the rain. Hard to tell. You can put your answers to that in YouTube chat, or please don't spare my feelings. Traffic up ahead for Van der Linden. That BMW might just have got out of the way the perfect time, or maybe not. As they come across the line there, Van der Linden goes, but no improvements, no surprise though for BMW. A little bit in the way there through the final corner. But Van der Linden goes again in the Lexus. Soares out there on track, just getting out of the way of other cars. Looks like that he's either on an out lap or cool down lap, as he let a BMW friend just whiz right past him. Ah, there's a K Mellis. I wonder who that is. We know Misha Mellis, but who is K Mellis? That's big Kevin Mellis, of course. What a strong name. What a strong name. I wonder if that's Misha's brother or something, or if it's just a common name in the Netherlands. Dutch people will answer that. Oh, there's actually were there two 488 Ferraris, or were my eyes just playing a trick? They were playing a trick. No, they weren't. That's or were they? They were definitely playing me a trick, as Ottleman is just parked there casually in the background. It is only Regan Mitchell in the 488 Ferrari, defending champion, if I remember correctly. Even though it's not been that long ago since we had the championship done with, but I think he won because it was the great story of the comeback of the 488 Ferrari, and it was all up to play for on the final race, and what a finale that was. It had everything that you could ask for, basically. Could have asked for some free lobster or something, but hey-ho. But Mitchell's currently set in 4th. Peters von Liebenstein and Whitburn ahead of him. Whitburn, newcomer to the championship, I believe, in the 620 Lamborghini. Still with the chance of scoring the maximum 100 points over the championship, as round 1 would have been the drop round for the Brit. If he completes all of the races, of course, that would be. As we can just see how they're trying to get out of the way for the guys on a hot lap. Super good sportsmanship and awareness on track there for Jordy Peters. Didn't have the best of races at Silverstone, so he will need 4 good races to finish off the season if he wants to be in for a challenge of the title at least, but let's see how that pans out. Zolder track where qualifying are vastly important. It's very, very difficult to overtake around here. You basically need the car ahead of you to make a little bit of a mistake to get a run down one of the straights. So it will be a rather tactical situation. BMW again, just but there's a lot of BMWs that look like each other, but one moving out of the way there, at least in the middle of the corner, while Beatty coming around. Van Mellis dropped to a 16th. Hard to get real estate out on track at the minute, it looks like, with all of the drivers out there. Also a lot of drivers turned up for this round. That must be one of the highest attendances we've had in a long time, so really difficult to find room on track, as we can basically see a lot of the cars bundled up together, so we'll have had to let other guys go through on quick laps when they were on the out lap and just getting collected in the back of the train. So being able to find some room on track, that will be the big thing, and hope that no one comes out the pit ahead of you that could potentially steal a little bit of your room. Gale Starring set in 17th. Not with overly successful qualifying so far for the pro driver. It does look like that a lot of the BMWs seem to be struggling a little bit out there on track, as Starring goes to the pits to get a fresh set of tires. As we can see how busy pit lane is on exit. Steve Parker, the Drift King himself, sat in 29th position at the minute. Second to last of those who have put in a lap time. But ahead of both of the wildcard drivers who are yet to put a lap on the board. Improvements still to be had for a lot of the drivers out there on track, including Parker. We know that the level of these drivers are quite close. Also impressive that from 1st to 29th it's only 3.3 seconds at the minute, and from 1st to 10th it's within a full second. And Jordy Peters just getting ever so close to the provisional pole, 15 thousandths of a second behind as he goes through turn 10. Let's see if this will be the new provisional pole lap. It does look good on the timing boards. Across the line he goes, and to the top of the table. 127.277 to beat. Peters makes a bit of a statement there with such a strong lap, but Regan Mitchell's just 8 thousandths of a second behind in the 488 Ferrari as he goes to the pit, getting a little bit of fuel in the car and a fresh set of rubbers to go with it. Super tight up in front. Looks like De Knuit have updated the livery on that Bentley since last time out. Some pink ladies, it looks like, on the Bentley 444. No, that's a pink Panther, not a pink lady. I guess you see what you want to. Aggressive tire warming from the Lexus up ahead, it looks like. Could also just be a Lexus fingers. He gets a little bit in the way there for De Knuit under braking into turn 10. Tries to get out of the way, but that could have been the main difference there for De Knuit. Hopes he have fuel for one more lap in that bend. It looks like it as he continues to go on hot pace. But this time round it looks very clear ahead of De Knuit. So this could be a strong lap for De Knuit if he manages to put it together. That's the thing, when you know that you have the clean air ahead of you, you might be a little bit too overly aggressive, knowing that it's your best chance to get a good lap in. And that could ruin it all. But at the same time not being aggressive enough, and you might lose out on your one chance. So that's a trick. Looked very good there through the chicane. But maybe a little bit too good, as it looked like, or at least I'm getting told that he invalidated the lap there over the Klein chicane. Going through the bigger one there, but he will have to try and reopen a little bit of room. I wonder if he knows the car both ahead of him and behind are not on valid laps, so he could potentially try and open up a bit of a gap. Odelman up to the line, he goes from 22nd, he jumps to 14th. Good improvement from the Dutch driver. As close to home as the drivers will get, or at least the Dutch drivers will this season. Well, technically I don't know if this is close to the Netherlands than Spa, but let's just pretend, at least. It's the virtual Zolder, we can place it where we want to on the map. Schickerman further down the field in the all-orange Porsche. .129 flat to beat for him to put improvements up, but just a 10th would be enough to snatch a position. 3/10 and he would jump massively, then he would be all the way up near Van Mellis on lap time. That's have almost become a classic picture, seeing Odelman's car just sneakily parked down the background. A little bit of a slide there from Schickerman. That loses a lot of momentum down this this semi-long straight. At least it does become long if you take it all the way from the initial acceleration. Hard braking zone gets it rotated nicely. Didn't use the astroturfing on the inside as we see a lot of the top drivers do. Down to turn 10 we go. I always found this braking to be particularly difficult to get just right, because you need to get the car rotated in time for the exit of turn 10. Across the line, Schickerman goes. No improvements this time around. But he still have about 5 minutes to get something on the board. Verhilst, Jost Verhilst to be more precise, in the number 9 Porsche. In 11th position at the minute, giving chase to a Golf liveried-ish Ferrari ahead of him. Let's see what Verhilst can do across the line from 12th position up to 7th. Improvement of about 4/10, and that moves him up massively on the grid, as it is so damn tight. The only one really without anyone directly sniffing around him in the top 10 be Vargas, and that is 0.6 behind the leader. He needs about 3/10 to find to get up to the nearest driver for him. De Knuit, race winner last time out, but this time all the way down in 8th with 4 minutes to go of qualifying. will he find the improvement that he so desperately needs to stay in the championship battle? Get up there and apply the pressure to Peters and Mitchells. Look at that train of cars. It's like being on a London highway, it looks like. But a good lap so far. Look good through turn 10 as well. Let's see across the line. De Knuit will go. Does improve up to 6th. It's becoming reasonable to assume that he could do something from that position. Quickly into the pits. Fresh set of Pirelli tires and a little bit of fuel, I would assume, to go out for one more shot. Vargas set in 7th position at the minute. One of the Mode 11 drivers with the Haribo livery on the Mercedes. Across the line he will go. And no improvements this time around, but very close to, so he will be trying again. Still enough time for 2 to 3 laps at this point, 2 laps for the drivers, but Vargas might have crossed it in time to get 3 on the board. So it is getting to the time where it's clutch to get out of the pits if you're sat in there to get a lap time in on the board. The 3 DMF drivers, by the way, 1, 2, and 3 in the semi-pro class. Kyalami leading us, a different DMF driver in 3rd than was in the opening round, but it's Kyalami and Carriera, and then Macedante in 3rd in that class, of 4th. Now there's Blishmak gets to provisional pole on semi-pro. That's just how quick things change. Blishmak, I don't think that he will go back out on track. It is getting to a time where he does need to drop from the jacks ASAP. If he wants to get something in there, Ottelman cannot be satisfied with the 15th position, knowing his pace. But saying that it does look like that the overall pace of the drivers just keeps improving from season to season, and it's hard to really put in previous results as the standard of driving as it just keeps getting faster and faster as we go racing. Wonderful to see. He will have one more attempt at least after this one, Ottelman will. Currently improving a little bit, might be enough to get within the second of the pole sitter. But let's see as he crosses the line from 15th position up to 11th, just over the 1 second mark. Getting to a point where it's very respectable, being within a second of these guys who are out in front. That is super difficult to get all the way up there, pace-wise. So good result there from Ottelman so far. Whitburn still out there. That name just seems so familiar from somewhere. I can't really put into words. He goes for a little bit of a flight over the sausage curbs. I think that would have cost him his final chance of improving. But let's see, Regan Mitchell's still out there. He will also be on his final lap. Needs to find 8 thousandths of a second to equal Peter, so 9 thousandths of a second to take the pole position away. Oh, that also looked a little bit too narrow there for Regan Mitchells as he bails off with an invalid lap. Sander Vale still out there on track. Just a few corners to go through 8 and then 9. The timer have run out, which means that the drivers out there on track that are currently on a flying lap, they will be the only ones who gets to finish a lap at this point. Sander Vale across the line from 14th place, makes it narrow across the line. He goes up to 8th. Super improvement there from Sander Vale in the 808. Van Melis haven't really improved since his first flying attempt. Set in 19th at the middle. A little bit of slide there through 10. Let's see, from 19th, He jumps to 17th on the last run, but it's just 1.1 second, or 1.2 roughly, behind the pole sitter. That's the gap from first to 17th. That was one H word of a close qualifying we had here at Zolder. But as per tradition, we'll take a short break and we'll be back with the race start for the second time this season. As we are back with just a minute until the drivers drives out on the formation lap around Zolder. As always, this is the time where the drivers are setting up their strategies and just making sure that their setups are correct for the race. Having the fuel load put in the cars, having the pit stop strategy done to perfection. and that might become an important part of racing this evening. The pit stop strategy, as it is so difficult to overtake around Zolder, then considering the overcut and undercut, and just fiddling around with the strategy could be very important if you're stuck in traffic and you feel like you have the pace advantage over the guys that you are around. Also a reason why we might get a little bit of an interesting first lap, we should say. So that could be something to look out for. There could be a lot of action when the drivers they start the actual race. 10 seconds before the drivers will have to be down from the jacks, and they will set out on the formation lap. As they roll out, nice and slowly for everyone except Van der Linden, who chooses to do a massive burn out there off the line in the Lexus, as we love them to do so. Interesting to see how the drivers warm up their tires and brakes. The most common strategy will be to just drive around with your foot a little bit on the brake to get the temperatures rising and the heat radiating out from the brakes and into the tires. Something that we'll definitely see on the run up to the start-finish line. Weaving are not that common, though. Most drivers do it just for the sake of it, because that's what we have seen on TV, and that's what we're doing when we pretend that we are actually race car driving. As Peters will get a perfect look on the track. This will probably be the slowest that we'll see the cars driving all evening. As they do go around, no one elected to start from the pits this time around. So what is that, 30 something cars that we have on the grid today, and that will be interesting. Getting 31 cars, and that'll be interesting as we come into the first couple of corners. Both turn 1 and the first chicane, that will be hot spots here on lap 1. You can go side by side all the way up until the chicane, and at that point that you will have need to sort out who goes in first and where to slot in, because it is difficult being too wide through there. It is possible because you can cut the curbing so much, but very dangerous because of the high curbs that can send the cars flying if you hit them too hard. Just a few more corners to go off the formation lap, as we can see the drivers starting to line up in double file formation. Just the rear end of the pack that we need to get up to the rest of them. Peters from pole, Mitchell from second, Whiteburn in the black Lambo from third, Van der Linden in fourth in that Lexus. Carriera took pole position by the end of it. Maybe we had a disconnect from Bridgemere or something, since he's dropped so far down. Anyways, we are shortly about to be racing. Good start there from Peters in pole position. He maintains position, but look at that, as Whitburn looks to challenge for second already on Regan Mitchells. Everyone seems to have cleared the first corner, at least, as Mitchells strikes back. A little bit of an argy-bargy contact there side by side, and that will probably push Whitburn down behind Van der Linden as they go through. But Peters already with the hold, Van der Linden holding out on the inside there with Whitburn. Whitburn getting a terrible exit there, which means Dick Knoit gets a little bit of a run as he drops in behind, choosing not to make it side by side into the chicane for the first time. But if Van Liebenstein looked a little bit racy there, had to fall in behind. Already a drive-through we saw further down the field for being either jump-starting or incorrectly positioned at the start of the race. Sander Vale in this with Vargas and Misa around him, and Verhels just behind the four drivers in this small pack. Vale actually under a lot of pressure from Misa in the best placed McLaren right behind him. Through turn 8 and 9 we go for the first time in racing speed. Overtaking opportunity into turn 10, but you will have to be very brave on the brakes. The famous "I'll send him to the moon" corner. For those who get the reference, type A in the YouTube chat. I don't think we have so many people left that would remember that. But classic moment at least. One lap of racing have passed, only one driver have dropped behind the field. Oh, not too good there from Vale as he goes a little bit too wide and have to leave the position to Misa, but he strikes back on the outside but gets a little bit too wide there. That gives Vale a horrendous exit, which leaves him very vulnerable from Verhills behind, but he does fall in behind. And sets himself nicely up for the chicane, actually gets a very good run out of what does that be, 1, 2, 3, 4, but nowhere to go if it lifts off the front and just falls in behind this train. Look at how many cars within just a few meters of each other. Verhills on the outside, difficult to hold it around here with the elevation changes, and then on the brakes into the chicane. Not quite far enough up to try for it. Ottleman being spun around just behind in the back of the frame. That will definitely put him right behind. A lot of cars getting collected, it looks like. That's the Audi of Koi out there as well. As it was Steve Parker that got the drive-through earlier. I think that's race over for Ottleman as he's still parked. And he have returned to the garage. Not a good start to the season from Ottleman. Very unfortunate that I think he just got clipped maybe in the back. As Vale messes up through 10. Leaves the door open for Verhilst, who goes for it, but that will be outside of turn 1 and 2. Goes in trail braking and side by side. Will they go through without contact? No, they have a little bit of an argy-bargy as Verhilst gets spun around that. Looked like that he kept control of it initially, but then that final tap got him spun around as he tries to flick it around, gets going again. As big awareness from the drivers behind that saw the yellow flag and stayed away from the car that was spun. He was also a little ways off the racing line. This is still the battle further up with Vale and this time Beatty, who have caught up behind in the Lambo. Meanwhile, in the front of the field, Peters are sort of burning away from Mitchell. At this point, 1.3 seconds already between them after just a few laps of racing. But Whiteburn is still in the chase, with Van der Linden right ahead of him and De Knuit directly behind. It's 5 different manufacturers in the 5 first positions of the race. Porsche, 488, Ferrari, Lexus, Lamborghini and Bentley. All of them up there. Big variation of cars in the top 5 so far. Speaking of variation, Vargas also doing a pretty good job on that Mercedes. Mercedes might be back as Van der Linden just takes the fastest lap of the race. So he definitely have some pace in that car. But will it be enough to make the gap to Whiteburn and try to close in on Mitchell's just ahead of him? As they go through the first couple of corners, flying down the back straight almost. Now they're on it at least. Hard to stay tucked up behind another car through turn 4, but managing to do so far on board with Matt Whitburn. Aggressive on the curbs, maybe a little bit too aggressive as he clips the grass there on the exit. Picks up a little bit of dirty tires there. Traction control off, as we can see on the screen for Whitburn. That is something that the very elite drivers, they like to do. Run with no TC as they get a better rotation on the car, a little bit better acceleration out of the corners. But they do run the risk of spinning up the rears and spinning the car around. High risk, high reward driving. Slightly defensive line there from Whitburn. He must be under pressure from De Knuit from behind. Considering those lines, he definitely is on board with De Knuit on the right-hand steered Bentley. Only of the GT3 cars to be right-hand steered. Very British, actually the preferred side to drive a race car from many people, because you have a majority of the corners on most tracks where you're set on the inside of the corner. But that is a little bit of a matter of preference. I do like it myself. the Bentley, and then the Ginetta in the GT4 is also right-hand steered. As they still run like fighter jets in formation. They surely knows this track around. Another spinner, it looks like, in turn 1, but that was just a brief yellow. He got back going again quickly. A little bit of a battle group also forming near the rear end of the field. From about Tang and down, looks like there's a lot of cars in a close contention. Whoa, look at that train. A few more cars than I was expecting there to be. It actually runs all the way up from Baverley and then down Carriara, the leader of the semi-pros in that train as well. Up in second in the train, Ruben Tang. A driver that we haven't seen in a long time, but I do remember racing against him all the way back when it was called SRI, where we were the Nissan Bros for a season. As he goes on the outside of the 303 car, that's Starring. Or Starring maybe trying it on Ruben Tang, it looks like. Almost free wide, no! Never going to end up in a good way, but a big contact there. All cars in the wall, these two cars in the wall. They will have to get going again. That's Starring and Tang. That will be a tough recovery on a track like Zolder to get back up through the field. They might opt for an early pit stop to get some damage repairs on the cars. But still in the train. Reindeer Helmout, former, I think he won the semi-pros last season in the 110 Ferrari. Currently 718th, he have a perfect view of the two leaders in semi-pro. As one of them goes a little bit wide there. Kyalami, that would be. Do you really think that I can remember that, Chris? Last time we used that, I think you sent that in a message to me. Nevertheless, behind the scenes talking there with something that looks like that I was talking to myself and my fantasy friend Chris. But Helmout still going side by side. Action coming into the corner. Helmout trying it on Kyalami and actually manages to pull one off on him. But still side by side as they'll head into 10. Kyalami with the inside line for the initial part of turn 10. But who is the bravest on the brakes? Looks like that Helmout got the best out of that one. As Kyalami slots in behind. Just ahead of one of his teammates on track. As they go running around. Still to go Reindeer Helmout actually pulling the gap already on Kyalami, though Kyalami did get the worst run onto the start-finish straight. But Reindeer Helmout pulling away ever so slightly. Might actually have the pace advantage to stay way ahead in this situation. He's trying to make the gap, but a little bit of a bad run there through 4. Allows the Ferrari of Kyalami to stay with him into 5, so this could potentially be a situation of you're quick behind, but as soon as you get in front, then you're stuck in the pace that you were in just before the battle, which makes it difficult. Jordy Peters already starting to lap the traffic. As he goes flying, Regan Mitchell will be the next driver. Blue flags are being waved. Let's see how this will be handled. With Regan Mitchell not wanting to lose any time to Jordy Peters. As the BMW just stays off the racing line. As the Lexus of Van der Linden will come up behind. Again, reasonably job of staying out the way of these guys. Little bit advantage there for Whitburn, as he got the least slowdown in this situation between at least Whitburn and De Knuit. Oh, sorry, Whitburn and Van der Linden. As Whitburn have taken the fastest lap of the race, it sort of shuffles between Peters, Mitchells, Van der Linden, De Knuit and Whitburn in these early stages of the race. But that is a tough spot to be in to get lapped this early, because you will have to give up room for the cars coming from behind, and you'll just keep on losing time. So it's basically a never-ending spiral at this point for the unfortunate BMW driver on the number 4 car. Ooh, getting a little bit iffy there with von Liebenstein, but I think they managed to get out of that one cleanly at least. As the racing continues up and down the field, von Liebenstein have put himself in a little bit of a no man's land at this point. He can see De Kneut just edging away ahead of him, but under no pressure from behind, as Vargas have dropped 6.6 seconds behind. But Vargas, speaking of, under a lot of pressure from both Meester and Beatty, who are giving chase at this crucial time of the race. Almost into the quarter part of the action. Beatty, the Hungarian driver, the caboose of the small train, led by Vargas, the locomotive, and Meester, the let's just say the mail cart between them, as they will have to deal with the number 4 car as well, the backmarker. That went rather easily for the 3 of them, as they're heading into the chicane of turn 5. No one close enough really to go for any moves, as Beatty cuts a lot of that, as he goes a little bit loosey-goosey there on the rear end, as he got a little bit of air time underneath the Lambo. Drops a lot of time on that. Does look cool though when the cars do that, but not something that you want to do too many times. I wonder how the drivers are doing on track cuts. I wish there was a way that we could see that, because that could play a huge role later on in this race. Just a quick reminder for the people out there watching, 3 track cuts is fine, but the 4th one, then you'll get a drive-through penalty, and that will lose you a lot of time on a track like Zolder and give up crucial track position. Further down the field, Macadante, one of the DMF drivers, right behind the teammate of Kyalami still. And we can see Reindeer also, no, that's Bravely just ahead of them, and Reindeer have made the move. Reindeer Helmut have made the move on Bravely as well. But Macadante in the middle of this, looking at his teammate. There will be a little bit of internal score to settle between them, as you always want to be the best driver on the team, and only the championship standings will reflect who that truly are, especially as the grids are as tight as it is here. Verhelst, who did get involved in a little bit of a spinnerino earlier on in the race, he is clawing his way back through the field. He will have to try and deal with Macadante and the other of the DMF drivers, but I don't think they will make it easy for him necessarily. One thing is to have the speed to be quicker than the cars ahead, but another thing is to make the overtakes. That can be slightly difficult. He does look to carry a lot more speed though through the corners, but if you can't go anywhere on the exit, then you'll have a difficult time getting the moves done. Does get a better run through the chicane. There's stop go 30 for Martin Coy, who leaves the pit after the damage repair, so a bad day turns worse for the Dutch driver in the Audi. Down to 29 runners in the race. Still quite a few though, but 29 still on track. So not a lot of room for these guys. Verhelst goes for it this time around on Macadante, but can't find the room. But does get the car set up for a better exit maybe, but not quite there. I wonder if he can do something for that Porsche. We have seen the Porsche being very quick in a straight line, at least last season. It seemed to be unstoppable from time to time. Nice run through turn 1. Will he try for into 2? Tries the wider line. That will set him up nicely. Gets the rotation on the car. A little bit of a wheel slip situation there, which means that he doesn't have enough to do it before turn 4. Falls behind to not get too much of the dirty air, keeps it on track. But now Verhelst actually gets put under a little bit of pressure from Ian van der Linden behind, as they slide through MC. Big run through Bud and into the big chicane. Very aggressively on the curves. It looks like this is sort of the tail end of the competitive part of the field. It looks like at the minute the rest of the drivers have fallen a good ways behind them. Outbreaking there from Iron van der Linden behind, but he could potentially still catch up, because this could get spicy. Verhelst not being given an inch or even an opportunity to overtake as he goes for the undercut strategy. Verhelst making the pit stop early to get out of traffic. The problem being, if Verhelst gets out of the pits and he then gets a blue flag afterwards, then it could become a little bit of an issue for him, but I think he will make it out before the leaders come around to put a lap on him. Another car drops out of the race. We just saw the yellow flag briefly there. I think that was Martin Coy maybe. Could have been starring as well, that he's also no longer to be seen on the timing board. But Kyalami under pressure from his teammate of Macadante behind. If they don't want to get undercut by Verhelst, then they need to get a move on. But Verhelst also needs to drop from the jacks in the pit soon if he wants to come out in front of the leaders. Pit exit is very long and a bit of a detour around here. So he might actually, or he will get caught up into the blue flag traffic. Let's see how that plays out for him later on in the race. De Knoit across the line. Whitburn still with the quickest lap of the race. That's Verhelst. We're seeing them moving in pit lane. Might have had damage repairs as well. Just a quick reminder for the viewers. Tire changes are mandatory in this race. So you'll be stopped or stationary for at least 30 seconds from when you stop the car in the pit lane until you drop from the jacks and can start moving again. But De Knoit still running strong in that 5th position, with Whitburn ahead of him quite the ways at this point. I wonder if De Knoit have made a mistake at some point, because Whitburn have pulled out a gap of 3.8 seconds down to De Knoit. But again, it is still early days in the race and anything can happen. De Knoit being in an advantageous situation in comparison to the guys in a tight battle, as he can just manage the tires. He will not have to think too much of getting undercut nor overcut when it comes time for the pit window if he stays in this gap, but of course he will still try to gain on Whitburn the best he can. So let's see how it goes. Knoit around, getting the curves further down the field. Macadante still in a little bit of a battle, but have opened some gaps around him. A second up to Braverly and just over a second down to Iron van der Linden, the DMF driver. I wonder what he can pull out in this one. 40 minutes to go, so that's the first 20 that have passed, which means that if you really want the undercut, then this could be the chance to take it. We are in the undercut window at this point, though most drivers are likely to come in at the halfway point, as they might just have fueled for half of the race, as that would make sense strategy-wise to keep the car as light as possible for as long as possible. Further up the field, the battling or the gaps have decreased massively here, with Regan Mitchell getting pressured quite a lot at this point by Patrick van der Linden and Whitburn. And if this keeps up, it's all good news for Jordy Peters, as he have that big gap of 2.4 seconds down to Mitchell's increased to 2.8 at this point. As it continues going, I wonder if that would have been Martin Coy that messaged in YouTube chat. That is unfortunate, but that is basically how it goes with so many cars on Zolder. Can't always go right as they put a lap on another car, the three guys up here. But again, we see those Lambos, they're wanting to take that curb a little bit more aggressively than the rest of the field. We have seen from both Beatty and Whitburn, doesn't seem to be the best thing for them as they get that air underneath the car and that extra bit of wheel slip as they hit the ground. Not that he lost that much to Van der Linden in that situation. Ooh, Van der Linden getting a little bit too late on the brakes there, having to take a straighter line into the corner, allowing Whitburn to close just that 1 or 2 extra meters on him. I wonder if Whitburn is thinking of the undercut and trying to get that little bit of clean air lapping to try and put the better lap times in than Mitchells and Van der Linden maybe undercut them. That could be the call if you are stuck behind other drivers around here, especially in this end of the field. I tell you what, I wouldn't have expected Van der Linden before the season to be in contention for podiums over the course of this year, but he is definitely putting me to shame with that statement. And the way he's driving right now, that is wonderful driving so far under a lot of pressure from behind, whilst also having to try and deal with putting pressure on the car ahead of him. Let's see once again Whitburn getting that extra bit of air underneath. On board with the Lexus driver. Probably the one driver who's the most pleased about having the mandatory tire changes, as that Lexus can burn through the tires. Especially when you set it up for a track like Zolder. But he is keeping up with it, and just a little mistake from Jordy Peterson, he will fall right back into the claws of these three. So we'll have them both on board and the roof rear camera from Van der Linden. Wes Mitchells actually gets a little bit of a slide then, runs wide. That gives Van der Linden an opportunity to stay with him, at least for a few more corners, as Regan Mitchells was actually starting to make a little bit of a gap, but that surely have passed away from him. Not the best entry there from Van der Linden, as it looks like that Lambo have a bit more aero on the car, as they're coming into a slow moving car down in the chicane. The car have moved, it looks like. Whitburn this time a little bit less curb, but still maybe just a tad too much for the Lambo driver. Mitchell's not opting to cut the first part of the big chicane that much, but that going heavy on the second. As they come into it, it's good to see the Lexus also still being a competitive car. Definitely the oldest GT3 car on track. Some might say, Regan Mitchell in the 488, but no, I think that's the 488 Evo Mitchells is racing with, that have the same age, at least roughly the same age as the Mercedes Evo that we see Nick Vargas running down in 7th. And that is confirmed that it is the Evo Ferrari. It would have been strange also to run the original 488. The easiest way to tell the difference is actually in the rear lighting of the car, where you can see that the I can't remember if it's the Evo or the non-Evo that have just basically round lights, and the other one have lines through. Kevin Mellis, the first driver to get the drive-through for track cuts, down in 22nd place, the only wildcard driver still running. Wildcard drivers being marked with the red boxes next, or well, the red number boxes, pros being the ones with the white boxes, and semi-pros being the ones with the silver background. As Marque comes into the pits to get the undercut going. 4 minutes before the pit window opens officially for the optimum strategy, but in his situation this could be the best time to do so, as he wants to try and get some clean air and get some overtakes done. He was battling with Kyalami just before us. We also see Van der Linden coming into the pits, diving in early. I would maybe, if I was Van der Linden, have stayed out there and defended from Whitburn. But he might just want to get some fresh tires in the car and put some quick laps in to try and catch up with Regan Mitchells and potentially make the undercut. But let's see if there's any response from Whitburn and Regan Mitchells this time around. Beatty also coming into the pit from 9th position. Oh, Whitburn again with that aggressive cutting. But this is the time where the timing board on the left-hand side might not be fully accurate, because it will not update before they cross the first sector after they come out of the pits. So don't trust that board completely. Whitburn not really managing to close the gap to Mitchells. He is getting slightly closer, but just slightly, as the pace stands at the minute. But anything could still happen. Does look like that that Peters have slowed down a bit. He's not pulling away anymore. He have dropped about 4/10 in the last couple of laps. Further down the field, Bravely in the big attack on Helmut Rain. No, that's not Helmut Reindeer. That is Kyalami, who also got the drive-through for track limits before the half-hour point. So that will be a free position for Bravely. Question stands if Kyalami have fuel to take the drive-through and then take the pit stop, or if you have to come in and take the stop before the drive-through. But he is going into pit lane. Meanwhile, a lot of drivers further up the field coming in as well. Both Mesa, Wolf Garcia, Sander Vale, of course Kyalami coming in to serve the drive-through. I think the case is for the race leaders that they want to try and stay out as long as possible, so they don't come out into traffic that's not blue flagged for them. That might be why they're stretching, but we're also still 50 seconds away from the halfway point in the race. Peters not calling this time around. Neither does Mitchells or Whitburn. And it looks like that they will get a clear enough air next lap as well, as the gap opens up again by a little bit from Peters to Mitchells. Whitburn catching up ever so slightly though. He is putting good lap times in at the minute. Von Liebenstein calls to the pit. Savsara also into pit lane. Verhelst just behind, or not just behind, but a good ways behind Beatty after the pit round. Remember, Verhelst took the pit stop early on and tried to undercut everyone out there on track as he was stuck in a little bit of traffic. Interesting to see where he ends up in relation to the drivers that he was with at the time, and that would have been Kyalami and that DMF battle, including Helmut at the time as well, leading that train. Van Melis and Bravely, speaking of, coming into the pits, which means that currently in the semi-pros it's Carriara leading that class ahead of Ian van der Linden and then Misha Melis. Only Macadante of the top runners in class seems to have gone into pit lane at this point. But if you are in clean air as you're running right now, then there are no point in pitting, because you just risk having traffic all around you. Meanwhile, Jordy Peters makes the play from the lead of the race. he comes into pit lane. Let's see where he comes out in relation to Patrick van der Linden, who are the lead driver of those who have stopped. Patrick would have been about, that would be 2.8, that would be plus, that would be roughly 4 seconds behind Jordy Peters before the pit round started. Let's see what the gap is like. After the first split, Peters still up on the jacks. Doesn't have the longest run up until he can deactivate pit limiter, but it is a long pit exit as you go all the way around the runoff of turn 1. Peters will still have the lead when he joins in on track, but probably not by that much. It will be close, it looks like. Remember, Peters also on slightly colder tires. As Peters comes out, that gap is not 4 seconds anymore. I think that Patrick van der Linden might have done a good thing with pitting as early as he did. Regan Mitchells comes in to defend track position to Patrick van der Linden. Meanwhile, Whitburn elects to stay out there. He does have the pace maybe to pull off the overcut. But let's have a little wait and see what happens in that situation. Gap down to 2.1 seconds between Jordy Peters and Patrick van der Linden. Which, if everyone's pit stop of Mitchells and Whitburns, they will be equal to what we have seen with van der Linden. Then van der Linden will actually take second place after the pit stops. It will at least be very close between van der Linden and Regan Mitchells. Once Mitchells gets running again, it is. Speaking of Mitchells that we are looking at in the bottom right hand screen in the pit lane. A lot of Schickerman, Carriari, Helmar also coming into the pits, which means that it's basically just Whitburn and Dumas, at least of the lead drivers that haven't stopped yet, and then Misha Melis and Kyalami a little bit further back. Mitchells are running out of the pit. He could potentially come out and do a big defense if he can keep Peters behind in a defense. Then it could be interesting. He will have cold tires, and that's the main thing here. Mitchells have taken the lead of the race in that pit stop round. Maybe he was just that much better in slowing down the car coming into pit lane. Big drop at least there from Jordy Peters. Unheard of that you drop so much time in pit road. Maybe you should have practiced that a little bit more. Whitburn into the pit lane. Dumas still out there on track. Same goes for Misha Melis and Kyalami. Which Dumas came into the pits this time around. Have done the overcut by about 4.5 minutes there from Dumas, in comparison to what should be the theoretical optimum strategy. Having the least weight in the car for as long as possible and the freshest tires possible for most of the race. But look at that, Mitchells not having heated the tires yet, as he have caught up massively to as Peters have caught up massively to Mitchells. But what happened to Patrick van der Linden, as he have dropped way back out of this one? Whitburn still going, and he takes lead of the race, but not by much, as Regan Mitchells are immediately on the attack. Mitchells with the much warmer tires. Will he be able to strike immediately? This could be for the win of the race. He needs to get this move done quickly. We do know Whitburn have the pace. He does have the fastest lap. He needs to take advantage of the hotter tires, doesn't Regan Mitchell? Big blunder from Peters, who drops 2 positions through pit stop strategies. Regan Mitchell tries on the outside of Whitburn into the big chicane. He has to fall in behind there. He does, as Peters comes right up behind. And I think that was it for the tire advantage there from Regan Mitchells. There might just be a few more corners before Whitburn have fully operational tire temperatures in those Pirelli tires. Question is, now that Whitburn have been unleashed in the front, will he be able to just pull away from Regan Mitchells and Jordy Peters who are giving chase from behind? Or will he be stressed enough that he will have to go a little bit defensive and think about what he's doing in this one? So far so good, temperature should be up and running. He will try and make the run for it. You would assume he will also have fresher tires than the rest of his opposing drivers for the remainder of the race. Melis comes into the pit. Misha Melis, that would be. Just trying to look if there have been any massive gainers through pit stretch. If Verhelst, of course, have jumped all of the DMF drivers and Reindeer Helmout, it looks like. Where is Helmout? Speaking of, I can't see Helmout on the standings at 19th, so Helmout actually dropped quite a lot on that pit call. Same for Bravely, down into 20th. Whitburn at least maintaining it at the minute. He will know that it's so difficult to overtake around here that if he just keeps focus and don't make any big mistakes, then it will be almost impossible for Mitchells and Peters to get anything done here. But I think Mitchells and Peters, who have been fighting for a couple of seasons at this point and knows each other inside and out, they will be on for as they make contact into turn 10. Big moment in the race, potentially for the championship, as Mitchells gets spun around and drops down behind both Peters and Van der Linden. And Van der Linden back on the attack, trying for second as he forces Peters to go narrow. He will have the rotation. Will he have the speed though on the exit? Peters could potentially also be carrying a little bit of damage on that Porsche now. Mitchells cannot be happy about that situation. I think that could potentially end up going to the stewards. Depending on who made the contact, it would be a little bit silly to report yourself, but that could be something that will be looked on after the race. So there'll be a little bit of an apostrophe next to the results for these runners. But a good situation for Whitclaw. I thought it was him, but that was just a back marker. McLaren getting out of the way. I think that was Misha Melis. Looks like that Patrick van der Linden's pace have dropped significantly after the pit stop round. And Whitburn finally found that clean air for himself, and now that he have that 4-second gap, he can take it a little bit more cautious, at least through the chicanes. We have seen Whitburn go flying in, maybe a little bit too hard in this race, and that could be something that could come into play later on. The lack of pace from Van der Linden could also be down to having maybe already gotten the 3 track cuts, and he's just being very cautious not to get the 4th one. Bravely down with a Reindeer Helmout right behind in the battle for 17th. Both of them in the pro class, so it will be important championship points that they will manage to scrape together in this one. Both of them in equal machinery as Kevin Melis gets the drive-through. Again, the track cuts being very tricky for the drivers out there. Something we did mention before the race. Could be a key factor in the race. Bravely does have enough of a distance to Helmout that he doesn't have to think about going defensive yet. But Paul Bravely will also know that if he makes the mistake, then Helmout will be right around him, and that could potentially be a little bit of a stress factor if he can't pull out of the way. That was the number 12 car of Soraris that had a little bit of a moment and have returned to the garage. I think that's race over for the number 12 BMW. Verhelst have caught up to Bas van Melis. In quite the comeback drive from Verhelst. That early pit stop have paid off, but he will have quite a bit more worn tires than the drivers that he'll be coming up to. It is Bas van Melis directly ahead of him, and then there's Scheckerman in the orange Porsche a little bit further up the road. But it's Van Melis in the orange BMW first. The classic Mode 11 car in the Dutch orange color, of course, of Van Melis' home country. Verhelst does look like that he have a lot more pace than Van Melis, but then again, it's not difficult for the quicker drivers to be quick around here. It's difficult to get the overtakes done. And if he wants to go further up than just Van Melis and Scheckerman, then he needs to hurry up and make that move, but he needs to do it in a controlled manner. So you could say that he needs to hurry up, but you have to do it slowly. Hurry up, but slowly. Or maybe just hurry up and composed. Some might say I'm definitely not a native English speaker, but it is what it is. At this point, Scheckerman might just be gauging out Van Melis where he can potentially get the move done, where Verhelst will be quicker than Van Melis, and if there is a specific corner where he can set it up and get the run out of, maybe. From what we saw on the last lap, then it would have been optimum for Verhelst to be much closer into this chicane, when it looked like that he had quite the overspeed coming out, and then the move into turn 8, it would be potentially that Van Melis goes a little bit wide there, allowing Verhelst to get a little bit close, but not quite, but gets the run out of 8, through 9 we go. Could be a braking situation into 10. A little bit risky from this distance, as it would be a half dive, but stays tucked in behind, tries to get the better exit. But again, not quite. The thing is, if you're slowing down because there's a car ahead of you, then it can be difficult gauging when to go on the throttle coming out, because you'll go slower, so you have more rotation. And if you're not used to the extra rotation, then you can't get it as early on the throttle as you want to, because the car's angled a little bit too much to the inside of the track. But look at the overspeed in that Porsche. Top grip, and Van Melis just have to keep himself composed and keep it on the racing line, staying away from making any mistakes. Then the position should be secured, because it is so difficult to get those overtakes done. Then as long as you can make your braking points and avoid the big mistakes, then you should be fine to maintain your position around here. A little bit of a cut there from Van Melis, it looked like. Might have picked up a warning from that, but did gain a lot of crucial meters to Verhelst behind. With maybe dropping a little bit of pace, maybe those tires have started to wear off on the Porsche. I have heard that the Porsche are a little bit rough on the tires, but it shouldn't be that bad. Although speaking of, he went in quite early, he should maybe have hit the drop-off point of the tires. Then the tires will reignite usually after about 10 minutes of driving, after they've started dropping significantly. So let's just keep that in mind for how this pans out. Dumas also super close with Vale up in the battle for 11th position. Speaking of battle for 11th position, here we go. Milan Dumas and Sander Vale. Again, two Ferraris and two drivers that have been around for a long time. They should have at least raced each other on track a few times, and will know the ins and outs of each other's driving style. Peters have retaken the fastest lap, by the way. That will have happened after the contact. He might be a man on a mission to try and get that lead back. Little bit of a mistake there from Vale, leaves the door open for Dumas. Dumas with the better run, he will try the outside. It is hard to defend this one on the inside. Because you lose the ability to trail break, and look how Dumas sells the dummy there on Van der Vale and goes through to take 11th position. That was psychological warfare between the two of them. Meanwhile, Verhelst still haven't managed to get the move done on Bas van Melis. But Bas have closed the gap a little bit to Schegerman while we were away from this. So that could be a freeway battle in the makings. I think Kyalami might have been off track as he have dropped all the way down to Misha Melis. Further down the field, Kyalami with a reasonable race. Misha Melis actually with a super good race so far. I think Misha had that drive through earlier on, and that would have put Misha way up the standings without that. But very strong performance from the McLaren driver. But still not on the podium though. It's still being held by Carriara leading semi-pro with Marcadante. I think it's Marcadante's debut race here on SSRI in P2 in the semi-pros, and then Ian van der Linden will round out the podium for the semi-pros. Which means that both Ian and Patrick van der Linden will take a podium home if the race finishes as it stands. Misha not being able to stay with them further up the field. That would be Beatty and Mesa duking it out for 8th position. Not too far down the road from the battle that we just saw. They're just a few corners behind. So they will catch up and they will put a lap on them at some point. Beatty of Hill Racing, meanwhile, Verhelst getting very close to Van Melis. This is where we saw the Porsche being strong earlier in the race. Out of these corners and then under braking into the next one, but not close enough to really go for it without a full send. Van Melis trail braking into the corner to really indicate his intent of trying to maintain position. Meanwhile, the 12th car being off, causing a little bit of a yellow flag, returning to garage. I think that I would have said Ruben Tang, but it was definitely not Ruben. He's in the 96. But Van Melis really just showing off his vast experience in sim racing, being so composed on track, not really showing any weaknesses, even though that he's being pressured by a driver that have proven to be extremely quick this evening of racing here at Zolder, but just still keeping his own lines, showing his endurance experience of just focusing on your own race. And that's being done masterfully at the minute. Is the 62 car maybe causing the yellow flags? Definitely someone, but nevertheless, they are still on it. There's actually, I think that's a back marker ahead of Mesa that they'll have to pass. Could be, looks like one of the DMF cars, actually. Suarez? Suarez? No. Definitely wasn't. I think Suarez was in a BMW earlier in the race. So unless if there have been some magical car change. Whoa! Never seen that before. Two back markers just parking up on the side of straight, but At least they got out of the way. It might just also just have looked a bit more extreme from the camera angle that we had on it. Less than 10 minutes to go in this one. So we are getting into crunch time. At this point, Whitburn have a very controllable gap of 3.8 seconds down to Peters in P1 and 2, and then a further 5 seconds down to Patrick van der Linden, who's also defending for his life with Regan Mitchells behind. Verhelsten still not getting past Bas, just showing how difficult it is to overtake around here. But Regan Mitchells up against the Lexus of Patrick van der Linden. The thing is, the BMW and the Porsche, they're a little bit more alike construction-wise of the cars compared to the Ferrari and the Lexus. So there might be a bigger car difference in it in the battle in the main screen, which would be Regan Mitchells and Patrick van der Linden. Then there's the battle in the bottom screen with Bas van Mellis and Verhelst. Ooh, a little bit of laggy moment there. It looks like connection issues maybe from our side to the server, as it looked like Regan Mitchells was moving quite mysteriously around the track. This time Verhelst with a good opportunity, but not quite enough to get it done. Van Mellis still just keeping the lines. No need to defend yet from Bas. Meanwhile, we can see Mitchells actually cutting a lot further over the curves and making more of the corners than Patrick van der Linden, but just doesn't give him enough to try for the move. Good rotation out of turn 1 into 2. Door a little bit open under braking, but Mitchells would have had to be way closer as he runs a little bit round wide there through 3 and then into 4. Verhelst with a good run on Van Mellis this time, but still opting to stay in behind. I think you have noticed how Van Mellis does that trail braking into 8 and doesn't want to get the nose up into that. Now into 10 for the two drivers, but still Verhelst sticking it behind, not wanting to risk the points. It looks like he knows it's better to take a 15th than potentially retire. But this time Verhelst showing himself on the main straight, but again having to pull in behind, trying the psychological game on Van Mellis, but it's not working on such experienced drivers. Mitchells also applying a ton of pressure on Van der Linden. It's like he does like a half show of a move, Mitchells, and then he loses a bit of time and then have to claw his way back with just 5 minutes and 40 seconds to go. He will probably have to do something else and try to psych out his opponent. Although I've been in this situation before where you are maybe overachieving a little bit results-wise, and then coming down to the end you get a little bit nervous and you start to maybe have a few mistakes creeping in. Mitchells for the podium on Van der Linden. Van der Linden going to take the main line, not choosing to defend into the chicane. Verhelst again with the run on Bas, but will it be enough? Not quite. It looks like he will probably still stay behind. Mitchells having to do the same through the big chicane. And not getting it right there does Mitchells. A little bit of a mistake running through. Verhelst trying to show himself wide, setting it up. I don't think it's the best place to try and set it up, because it would make an awkward side-by-side through 4. For a lot of the drivers, at least for those drivers that had a good result from Silverstone, they could potentially be more willing to risk at this point than the drivers that might have underperformed a little bit at Silverstone, as we do have the drop round in this season, meaning that your worst result will get scrapped from the points books. This time both Mitchells and Verhelst with good runs on their respective battles, but both having to fall in behind. But Verhelst this time much closer up behind Van Melli's rear end, out of 8 and 9. Trying to squeeze it into the inside there. Van Melli's having to open it a little bit. Going narrow, and Van Melli's onto the gravel. So Verhelst with the big run down the start-finish straight. Already alongside and a little bit ahead coming into the first corner. And Van Melli's having to almost concede the position. That shows himself on the inside, but not quite enough to go for it. But now the question remains, will Verhelst have enough time to try to catch up to Schickermann? I think Schickermann might just have the gap that's too big to overcome. But Mitchell's still applying a gazillion tons of pressure on the back of Patrick van der Linden, not allowing van der Linden to relax and just enjoy that P3 that he set it. Really giving van der Linden well, the opportunity, but really forcing him to work for it at this point. Meanwhile, battling the small screen at the minute would be the battle for 8th position between Misa and Beatty. That we also saw just like 10 minutes ago, being battle locked, still in the same battle. And again, Regan Mitchell's not close enough to go for it, but a mistake there from van der Linden, having to slow down too much on the curbs, allowing Regan Mitchells to go through, as Mitchells takes the 3rd spot on the podium, at least for now. So van der Linden demoted to 4th, and Regan Mitchells up on the podium spots, meaning we can put full attention on the battle between Beatty and Mesa. Beatty in the Lambo trying to overtake Mesa in the McLaren for 8th position in the race. Actually, van der Linden falling so far down after that he's under pressure from the Knoit all of a sudden, who we haven't seen much to since the start of the race. But Beatty with the pressure. Can he keep it up? Leader will have this lap and +1 it looks like from where he is on track. Whitburn with a comfortable 5.6 second gap down to Jordy Peters in second. Oh, Beatty actually looking to be super aggressive, trying to get this done, trying to stress Mesa as much as possible, it looks like. Dumas have also been on a mission and caught up to Garcia. But the battle between two of the big boys and the older generation cars, Lexus versus Bentley for P4. De Knoit would really love that P4 to add to his big points tally so far this season. Mitchells will have the highest tally after this race, I think, if the result stands as is. With a 2nd and a 3rd. But will anyone flinch an eye? Final lap of the race have begun for the race leader, so everyone crossing the line will go on to the final lap of the race. Race leader on the bottom right hand screen, Matt Whitburn, didn't look too promising after the start and he dropped down, but good pit stop strategy, overcutting his opponents, getting that pit stop limiter. I think he got that just right. He must have, since he got out ahead, or he just had massive pace while the other guys took their stops and had to heat up their tires. But super run from Matt Whitburn, and a strong result First time we see him out on track, and what a performance he have put in. So it might not be the Peters Mitchell show anymore for the race wins. A new contender have arrived in Matt Whitburn. Just 2 more corners to go, 1 more on the track map in numbers at least. And he can call himself an SSRI race winner. Matt Whitburn takes the 2nd round of the 12th season. Super drive from Matt Whitburn. Big congratulations from the shed to him to get the win here on Zolder. Jordy Peters will take 2nd, and Regan Mitchells will take 3rd. Actually, it looks like that Mitchells gets 2nd and Peters gets 3rd. I think they swapped over maybe after the contact to avoid some stewarding interventions there. Might be a smart thing to have done. Van der Linden finishes 4th, Knoit in 5th. Von Liebenstein gets 6th, or haven't crossed yet. We can also call the Carriara race winner of the semi-pros, as the rest of the semi-pros have crossed the line and was led by race leader. So Mark Dante finishes 2nd in the semi-pros, and Ian van der Linden in 3rd. Kyalami 4th in that, and Misha Melis will be 5th. But Knoit 5th overall, Von Liebenstein 6th. Ooh, there's car spun around. Vargas in 7th, Mesa 8th, Beatty 9th, and Milan Dumas will round out the top 10 of the race. Fairheads with a good comeback drive. Of course, put your driver of the day in the YouTube chat if you'd be so kind. As all of the drivers have crossed the line, this have opened up the championship excitement massively for the upcoming rounds. What an interesting race we had at Zolder. I often look at Zolder when it's coming up on the calendar, looking forward to seeing how it be. Usually a lot of close racing, but not a lot of overtakes. It did seem like the drivers were struggling a little bit with getting the moves set up and done out there on track, but we were proven that it was possible to get stuff, to get the overtakes done, as we are joined in the commentary booth by Regan Mitchells. Congratulations on P2. It looked like a swap for positions there by the end of things between you and Peters.
Hello. Yeah, it was a good race. Happy to get P2 after looking the wrong way on the final chicane. Yeah, Jody gave it back. I appreciate that.
Yeah, good show of sportsmanship, and the rivalry, or at least we call it rivalry in here, but might be more of a friendly thing between you and Jordy Peters that have gone on for a few seasons. Might be in jeopardy now with Matt Whitburn showing up and looking like a proper contender.
Yeah, he did good overcutting us both. Just managed to make it out. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, it was a good race. Hard racing with everyone. I forget who was in the Lexus as well.
Van der Linden.
Yeah, that was good as well. Really happy with it.
Yeah, strong race all around. Often when we're looking at Zolder, we think it's a difficult track to overtake on. Also seems to be hard for a few guys out there today, but didn't mean that it was impossible.
Yeah, it was almost impossible. It's more, it turns into a kind of mind game. You have to force a mistake rather than straight just overtake someone. So yeah, it makes it really interesting and tense. And the curbs add another dimension into it. Managed to get the Ferrari to take them quite nicely, but it was at the expense of like every corner. So yeah.
But might be worth. We did see the Lamborghini drivers, especially being a little bit too rough on the curbs and getting a little bit of too much air underneath the car, and the wheel slip didn't seem to be that much of an issue for you.
No, I would have had to do something really wrong. At least at the first chicane, I would have had to do something really wrong to bounce and spin out there. It jumped really flat basically, so I just kept the power on. It was really bad second chicane. That first curb, it's like a drop, and it would spin me round if I took it. So it made it hard for me to stick to the back of people.
One thing that is definitely on everyone's mind out there, except for the question of if you're single or not, but the one question that everyone wants to know after a race on Zolder: how many track cuts or track warnings did you get around here?
I got one, and it was, where was it? I cut the second chicane.
Yes, we did see usually in the second chicane, speaking of, that you didn't cut the first part of the second chicane as much as a lot of the other drivers, but then I got the car rotated better for the second part.
Yeah, the first part was death for me if I went too far to the inside, so I decided to just try and set up for the second part better. It never quite worked. People over the next two corners would often sort of drive away a bit because they got a better entry into them, but it was fine enough.
Well, definitely worked out with the P2, and congratulations on that. Any final words before we head on, or at least get off the air tonight? Spa next time around, staying in Belgium.
Oh, yeah, I love this car.
Yeah, the 488 have done a comeback.
Yeah, it's so good.
Speaking of, I have heard at least rumors, and I'll try a little bit myself. The 488 actually seems to be better than the 296 around some tracks, especially these more technical tracks. Is that something that you find to be true, or is it just all my mind?
I think with the ballast, you can give or take either of them at any track. To be honest, it does come down to track specific things. What I will say though, sorry, the gear 1 is so bad on race starts in this Ferrari. I'm always going to lose position.
So a little something to get used to, but good luck with the practice for the next one. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time, I guess, because I have been Oliver Anderson, and behind the cameras, as always, have been Grandpa Chris Hill. As we'll be rounding out here, we might have a stream for you next week for the GT3 Championship if we get our technical difficulties sorted. If not, then we'll see you guys in 2 weeks' time when we go racing at Spa. Have a good evening, and see you next time.